We may be a day late, but we're coming to you live from the Arkansas Grown Conference, where the Arkansas AgCast starts right now.
You're listening to the Arkansas AgCast, where we discuss the latest news, trends, and issues impacting Arkansas farmers and ranchers. Our show is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau Federation and hosted by Jason Brown and John Nickman.
Howdy, 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 gentlemen.
Hello.
How are we?
Doing good.
I'm good.
Boy, you guys got a lot to say today.
Traffic's
Golly.
bad out there.
I just wanted to leave you hanging for a minute.
Look, I owe you an apology. I didn't mean to wake you up. Goodness.
Well,
Y'all are full of energy.
Well, since you've got all the energy, how are you? Tell us more.
I'm doing great. You know what I like? I like a good show recorded on site. And that's what we're doing today. We're in Hot Springs for the Arkansas Grown Conference at the request of our friends who put on this year event.
The agricultural department.
So it's Friday. We're out and about. We're with the people.
Absolutely. Boots on the ground.
How can you not get into that? So I do have energy.
In a mood today.
Yeah. I'm glad to be
feeling himself, as they say.
Honestly, it took us so long to get through the intro, I kind of fell asleep. So.
At least he's honest.
Oh, sometimes it takes more. Sick burn. Sometimes it takes a few times to get that recorded.
Yeah.
How about another burn? I have been wanting to ask this question for months.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, I'm so afraid.
When are you going to grow a beard?
Well,
can you?
I've been asked that my entire life, and John McMahon is on the trail. It is impossible, my friend. See, I came up in high school in the 90s
with sideburns?
When sideburns were the
soul
thing.
patches?
Soul patches, sideburns, you better believe it. Could not grow a sideburn to save my life.
Don't feel bad. I had this disgusting neck beard in high school and these nasty chops.
Oh, that's funny.
That's bad.
So I thought
it was cool,
I will
though.
forever be your bald face friend.
Okay.
Somebody's got to do it.
That's fair.
But I will tell you, all three of us are holding a good head of hair still.
Yeah.
So we got that going for us. And Matthew, too.
Yeah.
For that matter. Let me see. It's Friday. It is an adventure to get to Hot Springs right now. We've had all this weather with the ice and the snow. Kids were out of school another week. And after the ice and the snow came all the rain, which we get a little break from today, but we've got more rain coming in tomorrow. And it has just absolutely wreaked havoc on the roads.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like I haven't gotten in the groove of work again since Christmas.
Yeah.
Afterwards. I mean, we had Christmas holiday, New Year's, and then we had the snowstorm, like you said, and then my little boy got sick. I don't know if I've put in a full week's worth of work since like first week of December.
Yeah.
And that's not because I hadn't been trying, it just...
Well,
that's how the cards fall.
No comment.
Yeah. Some of us work harder than others.
We got it recorded now.
Yeah, we do, don't we? Have y'all made your way around down here in the trade show?
I've bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
Not as much as I'd like.
Yeah. I've seen a few interesting things. We've got some vehicles over here. I was telling you ought to go take a look at that Grand Wagoneer over there.
I bet they're proud of that wagon.
I bet you they are too, buddy. I bet there's six figures involved in that one. Let me see. I've seen a few interesting things, some hydroponic type.
I did see that. Some vertical hydroponics.
Vertical growth. It being specialty crop focused, where you see some things that we're kind of out of the ordinary that we normally see. Our friends at Arkansas 811, man, those guys have always got some great things. I've been saying we were going to get him on the podcast and record something.
Yeah. Because
the information he shares is really valuable. I got to hear him at the White County Farm Bureau annual meeting, and I was kind of blown away by the information that he shared there. I saw Origami Sake, which is pretty interesting. A hot spring sake brewery.
Yep.
Arkansas's only sake brewery.
They're using Arkansas rice.
They are using Arkansas rice. When I walked in the door, it's just a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So anyway.
Yeah, this conference has a lot of different, I don't want to say commodities, but just avenues or offerings, because it's not a specific, specialty crops or local foods isn't specific to one crop or one animal or anything like that. So there's a lot to offer here, and it's a very unique conference, I think.
Yep.
I've always really enjoyed it, although we're only in our second year, I think, of the conference.
Yeah, and we were live last year. We came to you from the conference last year.
We interviewed Wes Ward, the Secretary of Ag.
We did. I forgot about that. Yeah. And then, we gave a workshop the past 2 days talking about how Arkansas Farm Bureau can benefit specialty crop growers and some of the resources and things like that. That's been well received. It's been great to be involved in that and hear and get to know other producers and those within the industry and make some connections there too. And then, look, it's always just good to be in Hot Springs.
Well, it's lucky for you
Spa
guys.
City.
I had to help set all this stuff up. 'Cause I was going to come down early and heckle.
Heckle. Well,
Make faces.
Yes.
Yeah, we probably that might have thrown us off our game a little bit. We're a 1-2 combo when we got in that workshop. We had some fun in there today. Matthew, will you take us to lunch today? Hot Springs. All right. He says yes, boys.
We'll see.
Where do you think? Where would you go?
Oh, man, there's too many options here
Yeah?
in Hot Springs. Matthew's got a bunch. I know the Mexican restaurant that Matthew adores.
Taco Mama.
I still have never eaten there. But
he's making it worse.
I
isn't
did
he?
see somebody
he's making
eating
a point.
some pizza last night on social media, and I thought about it this morning on the way down here. I was like, I sure would like some pizza.
There's 2 great pizza places
But-
here. One's better than the other.
But there is a
I'll say
burger
all
here
that.
that's really, really good too. So
Yeah, there's that.
it's up to Matthew. He's paying today, so
We were talking before we came on that German place is good. I like it.
If you haven't been
have
in there-
different thoughts.
if you haven't, you've got to go into that restaurant.
Yeah,
You feel like you just walked into Munich, or
yeah. It's they've got the whole
It's
vibe
authentic.
going on down there.
yeah, it's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
That's pretty harsh. You guys make him tote all this stuff down here, record everything, set up everything, and then make him pay for lunch.
Well, look, that's what he gets for being the food expert.
I mean, that's just
And he
part
just
of the
bought
job.
a house.
Yeah,
Oh me. Well, all
he
right.
has a really nice cart. I've always really been jealous of this cart. So
The card is very nice.
he's not working too hard.
Well, I disagree. I think he's taking good care of us.
I didn't say he wasn't. Come on.
In addition to the regular show, what we're going to do here, we're going to bring on Gary Matteson to talk to us. Gary works for the Farm Credit Council. He specializes in new and beginner farming programs and outreach, and I'm really looking forward to that. He's a keynote here
Yep.
at the conference. I think he's speaking at lunch too. So we're just really excited to have Gary agree to come and be a part of the show here in a little bit.
Yeah, Gary's from New Hampshire?
New Hampshire, well, D.C. by way of New Hampshire.
I'm interested to see his point of view and what's agriculture like up there.
Up there, yeah, that's
compared to here.
That's a good call. So we're looking forward to that. So in that sense, we'll just bring a couple stories to you today. We've got a couple stories lined out, and then we'll spend the rest of the day talking to Gary here live from the show.
Mm-hmm.
As always, we are live. We're in a trade show, concrete floors, concrete walls. So the sound quality may not be what you're used to, especially if you're listening and can't see us. Pretty noisy, but that's okay. That's one of the reasons we like to get out and do these things.
Just know we're trying.
That's it. Let me see. Before we get into the news, a couple of things on the list. We talked about the A-State Agribusiness Conference last week. That's going to be held on February the 7th in Jonesboro. And we did was give the date last week, so I thought we'd round back and give a few more details. That conference is going to kick off at 8:30 on the 7th. I believe that's a Wednesday. and a few of the things that are on the agenda. You'll have an update on the A-State College of Ag, sort of a state of the department there from Dr. Latour. And then there's going to be a session on agribusiness trends right now, and that's going to come from the CEO of Ag Heritage. Rice Tech and the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol have got a session where they're going to talk about sustainability issues in rice and cotton. And then you've got a session on the economics and politics of the Farm Bill from the Division of Ag at Mississippi State University, and a lot more. And as you know, in the afternoon, there are always commodity-specific sessions that go on, and those conversations and sort of breakouts. So make sure you're planning to attend that. Again, February 7th, A-State Agribusiness Conference in Jonesboro, happening at Fowler Hall. If you just Google that, you'll be able to find all the details you need.
You think Dr. Greenwald will be there?
It's his show, buddy. You better believe it.
Something tells me he'll be there.
And then lastly, before we move into the news, just a quick reminder. We've talked in the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about the eQuip application process with the Act Now program. And just want to remind you, that is live. That application window opened on January the 22nd. It's open for 30 days. And if you want to know more about that, we have a deep dive. You can go and find where you listen to podcasts with Alvin Peer. Mm-hmm. He's one of the folks that works on that program. He goes all into the details. But if you're interested in high tunnel, if you're interested in soil health, if you're interested in energy on the farm, you've probably got an opportunity to go, and you should be looking at some of those funds made available. In total, $19 million over that 30-day application period. So you should look into that.
Yeah.
Anything else before we get into the news?
No,
not
that I can think of.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with some exciting news by the way of the American Farm Bureau Convention in Salt Lake City this week. Brian, you are fresh back from that.
Must be nice.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about what went on there, especially as it applies to Arkansas. First off, we had a great representation in Utah. A large number of our members and staff, as we mentioned, attended the convention to represent Arkansas there. Turns out we picked up a little bit of hardware while we were there, too.
Yeah.
Arkansas was one of 6 states to be awarded the Pinnacle Award, the highest honor a state farm bureau can be awarded for program membership and achievement. We also received an award of excellence for achievements across all 4 program areas: advocacy, coalitions and partnerships, engagement and outreach, and leadership and business development. So, a couple trophies coming home from Salt Lake there. In addition to the awards, there were a number of policy issues addressed. A total of 346 voting delegates took part in the business session where public policy positions were defined by the American Farm Bureau membership. Among the topics addressed were farm labor, development of the Farm Bill, federal tax policy, redesignation of the Buffalo National River, livestock, marketing, and rural development. Just a shout out to the members who made the time to attend the 105th AFBF convention in Salt Lake City. We'll have more on these awards and policy piece in today's issue of the Farm Bureau Press, if you get that, which should hit your inbox here shortly. So a great time. I've heard nothing but positive things about the convention in Salt Lake City. Talked to a few members from staff. And congrats to everybody involved in this recognition too, for Arkansas Farm Bureau.
Yeah, and this is President Wright's first AFBF conference as president of
As
Arkansas
president,
Farm
that's
Bureau.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Got to see him on stage on some of the social media things I saw. So happy for him.
And our first Pinnacle Award, is that right? Did I make that up?
I believe so.
Yeah. So way to get things going, Dan.
Yeah, Dan just coming in here and doing things. Well,
right.
I guess it's my turn. My story. I'm gonna divert from local food systems. You're stepping on my.
Oh,
cord
I'm
here.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Goodness gracious.
Man.
He's needy. He's needy.
Yeah, I'm stepping my stuff, man. So like
I got you
said,
hemmed up.
Oh, gosh.
just trying to move my head and I couldn't. Just panicked a little bit. Some people don't understand the concern, but it's all right.
Well,
Anyways,
all right.
Like I said, I'm going to divert a little bit from local foods, local food system for my story today, and talk about some developments in agricultural exports and shipping costs around the world. I know. We're at the Arkansas Growing Conference.
It's okay.
And it would be more fitting to spotlight local food production, but I wouldn't make this shift if I didn't think this story was important.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're bringing it.
All right. So this story comes our way from Southern Ag Today, which has several authors who contributed to the article. So if you want to know more about them, please venture over to their website and click on the Southern U.S. Agriculture faces headwinds in Asia amid Red Sea shipping disruptions. As I'm sure by now everyone is aware of the shipping issues we've seen with the Mississippi River and also with the Black Sea due to geopolitical issues between Russia and Ukraine. But however, the shipping blockades in the Red Sea and constraints at the Panama Canal have created more ripples in the shipping costs that we might see trickled back down to the supply chain here at home. Due to terrorist attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea, one of the most critical shipping routes in the world for southern U.S. agricultural products, ships have been diverted through the Cape of Good Hope. This, in turn, has created more than a 50% decrease in shipping volume to the region and has also increased shipping timelines by almost 30 days and has no doubtedly increased shipping rates. The authors of the article have already seen notable freight rate increases. For example, an increase in average cost of transporting a standard container, which is measured as a 20-foot equivalent unit, or a TEU, has gone up from about $700 in November 2023 to over $1,900.
My goodness.
In January 2024. There are other routes such as China and from China to northern Europe, which rose from nearly $750 to $2,000 as of January 18th, 2024. Just to the south of us, the Panama Canal's limited capacity has further complicated the situation, initially rerouting from the U.S. Atlantic seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico to Asia via the Suez Canal. However, many carriers have shifted back to the Panama Canal. This critical passage for southern U.S. ag exports destined for Asian markets is now causing increased congestion and delays as well. This, in turn, should give rise to concerns about stressing trade relations between the U.S. and Asian countries, which is already probably fairly stressed.
Yep.
The authors of the article wrapped up by offering some suggestions for exporters in the southern U.S. and how to respond to these challenges. They should explore alternative logistical strategies, which include diversifying port usage. This is interesting, considering air freight for urgent shipments. Can you imagine shipping tons of soybeans
through the air?
Yeah. And reevaluating supply chain routes to mitigate the impacts of delayed deliveries and increased costs. However, these adjustments come with their own financial and operational complexities. I'll just go and echo what these guys are saying in this article and mention that this kind of issue has always kind of scared me, and I've mentioned it several times here on the podcast. Agricultural production in the U.S. has been scaled up to meet international demand over the last 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And it just makes me think, what happens if that demand goes away?
Yeah.
And what kind of impact will that have on our industry here at home, and what would it look like if we didn't have that?
Yeah. I've been following this a little bit. I, by the way, not that you need my agreement, but totally agree. I think this is right on to bring today and very
so
timely.
Much better you said that. Thank you.
Stop it. Just complimenting you. But I was reading a story last night that alluded to the fact that maybe China had intervened a little bit, calling on Iran. I think some of these attacks have been tied back to groups or a group who've been funded by Iran potentially. And this story alluded to the fact that maybe China had called on Iran to maybe make some calls and try and address this situation a little bit, because it is placing pressure throughout the world on trade relationships.
Yeah, and I think one thing to focus in on here is that exports are going out of the country in every direction. But as far as agriculture is concerned, our agricultural products, the majority of them, a vast majority of them, come through the Gulf of Mexico via the Mississippi River. So this could make a huge impact if nothing is changed or fixed. And it won't be a positive impact. And those shipping costs are all going to go up, which means prices for farmers will probably go down.
Yeah, that's shipping can continue, but if there's alternate routes involved or going, having to go around this land mass instead of through a canal or whatever. There's so much that could happen there. I mean, every bit of that is a price impact.
Yeah, and I say prices as in prices received for what you're growing.
Right.
Not like your input costs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So anyway, I love that one, and I think it's something we're going to have to continue to follow, honestly.
Yeah. For some reason, I've gotten really caught up in trade issues the last few months.
Well, you're into it.
I didn't do very well in international trade in college, so I don't know why I'm reading you these stories.
You're making up for lost time.
They're important, man.
No, they are important, and Anyway, I just think it's good to cover it.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we'll have our guest, Gary Matteson, on the show. But first, let's take a short break and hear a bit about what a Farm Bureau membership can do for you and your community.
Your Arkansas Farm Bureau membership supports the work we do on behalf of Arkansas farmers, ranchers, and communities around the state. A $40 annual Farm Bureau membership makes a difference in your neighborhood. From youth leadership programs and academic scholarships to hunger relief and disaster support, you can make a difference and be a champion for your community. Join at arfb.com.
Again, you've probably noticed that it's not just me and you here anymore.
Yeah,
and
who
Brian.
is this guy?
I know. So we do have we've taken advantage of the opportunity to speak with one of the keynote speakers here.
Yeah.
Mac, you want to tell us who we got?
Yeah. So we've got Gary Matteson here on the AgCast today. Are you excited?
I'm excited. Yes.
Gary is the SVP for Beginning Farmer Programs and Outreach at the Farm Credit Council. Gary, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you. I'm very glad to be here. This is the best AgCast I've done today.
He's got jokes, everybody.
He gets it.
Well, let's kick off the conversation with a little bit of background about you or where you come from. Tell us how you got into agriculture and certainly how you became an expert on beginning farmers.
Sure. Well, there was a time when I was a young beginning small farmer myself.
Yeah.
I started in the greenhouse cut flower business. Well, actually, before that, I worked on a farm, a commercial Simmental breeding farm in the Hudson Valley of New York State. And right next to that property was a greenhouse business. I ended up working there at the greenhouse business, buying some seeds from them a few years later, moving to New Hampshire and building a new greenhouse business, a whole third of an acre. That was the size of my greenhouse business in New Hampshire, and grew anemones as cut flowers and sold them to wholesale florists. So I kind of stayed away from direct to retail until we got cattle, which was actually the first year we were there. We got cattle, and so I owned cattle for 30 years, along with growing flowers, and after that, I got a real job with Farm Credit.
That's funny.
So, I mean, you were in direct-to-consumer marketing with your cattle as well?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow,
that was
okay.
grass-fed beef before you called it that.
Yeah.
That's all we had to feed them, so I didn't want to.
What year was that?
Gosh, we started farming in New Hampshire in 1981.
And you were
wow.
direct to consumer.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
somebody at this table was born that year. You were direct to
It wasn't
consumer
me.
back then.
Yeah,
That's
and-
groundbreaking.
And it's the reason that happened is the Northeast used to be commercial agriculture. There was wholesale apples, wholesale dairy, poultry, broilers. All of that disappeared in the 1960s. By the 1960s, it was largely gone. Potatoes were a big thing.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And so those farms transitioned, many of them transitioned into direct to retail because we had a lot of people right there, but we didn't have a whole lot of production capacity. So sort of upscaling the idea of a dairy farm all of a sudden becoming an ice cream bar where they, dairy bar.
Agritourism
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
on the
Exactly.
front end. Wow,
Exactly. And
that's amazing.
That sentiment of actually selling the experience was the kind of the thing that I grew up in from the 80s when I started farming into, of course, the major part of the economy that it is now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool.
Across the Southeast and probably up your way, we've seen a lot of dairies transition into that. They're not just a standalone dairy anymore. They're a creamery as well. And like you said, they're selling that experience.
And it's not for everybody. I mean, it's a very different kind of business.
hard
Once
work.
you get when you have customers, things can get pretty sticky.
In the early 90s, we had over 300, and I hope I'm remembering this correctly, dairies in the state of Arkansas. We're a small state. We're 20 ish
Maybe.
dairies right now.
Wow,
and we
that's-
think that could be overshooting it a little bit. The dairy industry has really taken a hit in Arkansas.
The last time I looked at it, out of the 100 or so dairy farms that are in New Hampshire, I think 15 of them are direct to retail.
Really?
And some at scale. I mean, they're
Wow,
big.
that's cool.
So
All right. Well, believe it
Metro-
or not, we're not here to talk about
go figure.
dairies
The
or
flour guy
agri-
talking about dairy.
But now we want to talk about. Now I want to have like part 2 of the show.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to that. But
talk about that.
so our listeners are pretty familiar with Farm Credit. The majority of people in Arkansas are. But what would you tell us about the Farm Credit Council and the focus of that work and what you do there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good distinction to make. The Farm Credit Council is the trade association for farm credit. So,
Okay.
like Farm Credit of Western Arkansas would essentially be a customer or a member of the Farm Credit Council.
all right.
Lindsay. our
And
good
so,
friend Lindsay.
we're like Farm Bureau. We're dues driven. The members don't change. There are only so many farm credit associations and banks out there.
Sure.
But the Farm Credit Council gets dues from members to do its operations in D.C. So, like AFBF, we are the legislative and lobbying voice to both the ag committees and to the administration and to our regulator, our independent arm's length regulator, the Farm Credit Administration, which would be analogous to the FDIC
Yeah.
Sure.
for banks.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
your membership is the associations and the banks themselves, not individuals.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we hear it
And
all the
okay,
time.
well,
Sorry.
there's
Go
one
ahead.
other cool thing that Farm Credit is an odd duck. But
Yeah.
just let me, if you're a member of your local Farm Credit Association, you own your Farm Credit Association as a member. Your association owns a bank
Yeah.
as a cooperative also. The 4 banks own the Farm Credit funding system
Yeah.
as a cooperative that sells bonds on Wall Street. That's where we get our money. There's no president of Farm Credit. There's nobody in charge. It's a cooperative of cooperatives. So if you think about it, as a business execution strategy, it makes things kind of tough because
Sounds like it.
we all have to talk each other into it
Yeah.
if we're going to do
Yeah,
something
yeah.
new and different.
Yeah.
And one of those things that was new and different that Congress gave to us as a mission element was serving the special needs of young beginning and small farmers.
Yeah. Well, excellent, because that's exactly what we wanted to talk
It
about.
forces everybody to work together, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But, if you've ever roped cattle or herded cats, there's certain
Done
similarities.
a lot of cat herding in my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen. We're parents, so.
There you go.
Well, look, we hear it all the time. You just brought it up for us, but farming. You talked about new and beginning farmers, but farming can be hard to get into. We talk about that a lot, whether this be issues with finding land, getting financing, any number of items in that long list of challenges. What do you see as challenges that come up most often? And you could speak about these in terms of row crop or cattle farmer. But I would love to just hear the challenges that you hear about most often.
Well, if you ask me, the ones I hear about and the ones that I identify, those are two different things. 'Cause
Okay, yeah.
People love to complain about how hard it is to get into farming. But how I look at it is that the most difficult thing for a beginning farmer is to have their expectations in the right place, because what they're trying to do is be in business. And they're trying to create a viable business, and somehow we've sort of missed the boat in our ag organizations, where we get kids growing up in agriculture that think, I've got to buy a farm to be a farmer, or I've got to have a tractor, for gosh sakes, or a horse or something.
Money.
And buying the thing isn't the same as operating the business. I know I work for an outfit that lends money to buy land, but it's not necessarily a good strategy for a beginning farmer. Leasing land, proving your business concept, being able to find out if you really like doing it, if you really can doing it.
Yeah,
And-
that makes a lot of sense.
and honestly, the most successful farm transitions, because I deal with that to some small degree also, the most successful farm transitions are where that beginning farmer coming back from, let's say, going to college with an ag economics degree, they start by farming a 20-acre or 40-acre
Pulling off a
parcel,
little chunk or
and
bit
they
of
lease
that.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they trade labor for equipment time with mom or dad or uncle or whatever, and they grow their operations separately on leased land, and it's 10, 15 years down the road before that big farmer, that Iowa corn and soybean farmer buys land.
Yeah.
It's as a business strategy, buying land first before you know how you're going to do it, especially if you get outside to a retail-facing agriculture, something where you got customers, you need a location, or you're in vegetables and you need markets, and you don't know the soil types, all those things. To do it on leased land and prove a business before you actually try to be on that land as an owner is the most sensible advice, and that's what I think is one of the biggest problems for beginning farmers.
Yeah.
When I was at the U of A, we were doing a lot of enterprise budgets, doing a lot of presentations, and did some sort of kind of consulting effort with producers. And my biggest preach to them was, this was for fruits and vegetables, right? In direct consumer marketing, know where your customers are and what they want. And if you don't, then you're setting yourself up for failure.
But part of that is learning the market. You don't want to be learning to farm while you're learning the market, right?
Yeah.
Like or trying to make a land payment.
Yeah, I like carrots, so I'm going to grow carrots. Well, do your customers like carrots?
Yeah.
Who are your customers?
The second hardest thing in farming is selling the stuff that you grow. As far as growing it, and I'm not, I was a grower. Give me a little break here. That little seed, the carrot seed, has all the information on being a carrot that carrot needs, right? All you're doing as a farmer is giving it some optimal conditions. The hard part, the thing that the carrot can't do, is sell itself.
Yeah,
sure.
And that's the second hardest thing in farming, is selling the stuff.
Yeah. I've seen it on multiple occasions that farmers are really good at farming.
Yeah.
And then trying to market and sell that product is probably the most difficult thing for them to do. Along with the many other hats that they wear.
That's
throughout.
the second most difficult thing. The most difficult thing in farming is stopping. Give me a minute here. No, really. Because stopping farming altogether is an emotional thing. It's your identity is there. And stopping also includes like stopping growing carrots because I'm not making any money at the darn things.
That's
Farmers have trouble stopping. That's the biggest problem. Second biggest problem is selling it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, those are some of the challenges you discussed. What about opportunities for beginning farmers that you've seen in, what are some tools that Farm Credit might have out there for producers and beginning farmers?
We like to lend money to people who pay it back. And that money is a heck of a good tool.
Yeah.
And so having a plan on how you're going to pay it back is like, that's walking in the door with a cash flow budget that says, here's when I'm going to make money and here's when I'm going to spend money and here's how I'm going to pay you back is golden.
Yeah.
And Farm Credit's charter is that we can only lend to agriculture, things owned by farmers, which would include forestry and fishing, and of course, row crops or livestock. But the having a plan that says here's what I'm going to do is really the essence of being able to go on out and get the tools to help you do it like cash. And a loan is not, it doesn't make you a better farmer to borrow money,
right?
But Farm Credit looks at a young borrower, and sees a rural entrepreneur. That's what we see.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And because statistically, and I'm backing away from actually lending somebody something, but statistically that beginning farmer, let's call him a rural entrepreneur now, him or her, is going to own 2 or 3 other non-ag production businesses in the course of their farming career. And they are an economic engine in their community.
Yeah.
They're what make rural communities tick. They're going to be the folks in the community that you go to, and somebody's going to say, hey, you want to go in business with me on this. That's how they get those other businesses. Besides the things like, I'm growing corn and soybeans. I got a live bottom trailer. I'm going to be hauling in the off season. That's the typical sort of thing. But the rural entrepreneur and that concept and emboldening and enabling the rural entrepreneur, I think, is how Farm Credit sees beginning farmers.
Okay.
We know they're going places.
Yeah.
We're lucky they're in agriculture, for starters.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that.
It kind of sounds like what you're saying is knowing how to manage working capital. Right.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for bringing up the financial skills
Well,
that
hey,
I'm
look,
supposed to
look,
be talking about.
Look, here's the deal. He's an economist, and he tries to get nerdy on us all the time. We just kind of have
Does
to
he
back
show
him down a
graphs?
little bit. Yeah. Excel spreadsheets are his love language.
I have
and
to
I'm gonna
prove
tell you,
myself to my employer. Come on, man.
Well, look, you work in agriculture. You're a farmer yourself. Like, you know that there's one thing that everybody's talking about right now in January 2024, Farm Bill.
Yeah.
That's the thing that everybody is solely focused on, really. And I'm just curious. You talked about some of the tools that Farm Credit offers. Just curious if you know, if you see, if you're pushing for, and you live in DC. So, what are you hearing as far as assistance or focus on beginning and new farmers in that Farm Bill as it's being worked together?
Well, in the big picture, the ag committees are tremendously supportive of initiatives for beginning farmers. The training aspect of it, the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, having certain pools of money that's available at FSA or NRCS that are preferentially available to beginning farmers, all that, or farmer veterans.
Of course.
For instance, all of that is emblematic of how the ag committees see the need to support beginning farmers. And of course, whatever they write in the Farm Bill is subject to the appropriations process, which is entirely separate. It is kind of frustrating that the Farm Bill is postponed. The DC political look of it is they don't want to put a Farm Bill out there in the wind and let people attack it. They've got to wait until they have floor time scheduled. That's the delay right now in addressing the Farm Bill, is that Congress is kind of concerned about keeping the government open and a few other things like that, little details. So it's a frustrating situation where it's very difficult in the way that Congress runs its processes, that there's not the kind of committee hearings where you go and you debate which is better for beginning farmers. It's hard to get to that point. All of those sorts of things have to come up in the remote hearings that they have on the Farm Bill, which I'm glad that Farm Bureau was so involved in those across the whole country.
We hosted one here in Arkansas.
You kind of got a good direct line here. Thinking I might hang around and look for a hallway conversation.
If you hang out at Farm Bureau long enough, you'll see Senator Bozeman. I can assure you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
he drops by. Well, that's good to know. We're always advocating for anything that can help those new and beginning farmers. We talk about it a lot. John and I hosted a workshop today, which we mentioned earlier, and we talk about the average age of the farmer going up. It's a common thread that you hear a lot. And it's important to invest back in that farm. I mean, look, all of our lives depend on it in one way or another. We've got to eat, we got to have clothes, we got to do these things, and so to make sure that we're investing back in the future through new and beginning farmers is just incredibly important. I'm preaching to the choir. That's your job.
It is,
but
that the aspect of how that works in Farm Credit is we have a specified mission to support young, beginning, and small farmers, and every Farm Credit Association in the country has its own beginning farmer program that would involve usually a combination of financial incentives like paying FSA loan fees or having lower lending standards so that you need less equity. So they try to stretch as much as they can in that way, but significantly. And over the past, let's say, 10 years, especially when back in the good old days when interest rates were low, cutting somebody's interest rate because they're a beginning farmer had a lot less effect than having an education program. So Farm Credit Associations have really, really stepped up what they do for education, holding conferences, doing, having peer groups of farmers that are in similar situations so they can benchmark together, things that are like really into the weeds with the financial skills and implementing those financial skills. And I think that's in the Northeast, that's something that Farm Credit started doing decades ago because cooperative extension evaporated in the Northeast. You've still got a strong extension system around here, and Farm Credit works with whoever's out there. Extension in the states where it's active, Farm Bureau pretty much everywhere. to be able to deliver what beginning farmers seem to need. So it takes a lot of listening, which may be slow.
Yeah.
It takes time. And I guess if we get to be engaged in the farm community in a way that I think is great. A lot. I would say, guess off the cuff, 40% of our loan officers nationwide are actually involved in a farming business.
Yeah.
So they're there. They do it, and they kind of get it.
Yeah. I will echo that for the farm credits here in Arkansas. I've heard a lot about their programs and kind of the networking they have within that system, which if you're not involved in it, you wouldn't know it existed, right?
Yeah.
But we have the same thing here at Farm Bureau. It just popped in my head. I was like, well, man, maybe Gary can lower my interest rate a little bit. We get that all the time here at Farm Bureau. It's like, hey, can you lower my premiums? Like, no, I work for the Federation, but I'll introduce you to my agent. But it's.
Well, the more you borrow, the lower the rate goes. So you're just gonna step it up there.
But your point's a good one, which is you've got to get involved. We were just talking about how Farm Bureau can help specialty crop growers in this workshop, and number one is buy a membership. Become a member, but don't. If you stop there, you might be disappointed.
You're missing out.
You got to get plugged in. You've got to be in the community. You've got to build the network. You've got to have the peer groups. Exactly what you're talking about to get the most out of it and to be a low interest rate. I love that is not going to be nearly as helpful to you as getting in and getting involved. And that's, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I mean that's a great piece of advice for a new and beginning farmer.
Yeah, and the same thing we said early in our workshop is what you just mentioned. Your loan officers are in those communities, living and breathing agriculture. And that's one thing we said in our workshop. Our 50 employees we have in the Federation are either brought up in or around agriculture in one way or another. They have a vested interest in agriculture and want to see that succeed and prosper and build it up. So it's kind of interesting seeing both sides, how Farm Credit and Farm Bureau are kind of moving in the same direction in the same
in a lot of ways.
Values.
We do. We depend on each other in D.C., I can tell you that.
Well, we got one more question for you.
Okay. All right. Let's
Okay. We're done with the serious questions.
Okay.
But you're still on the spot.
Uh-oh.
So with every interview we do, we try to have at least one fun question. Some are funner than others, but this is the one I have for you.
You know why I said that? Because I wrote this question.
Okay, so he's deflecting.
It's exactly what he's saying. Like,
So
I probably
if you don't like the
something
question, it's not my
different.
fault. Blame him. So, like I said, we always have a fun question. In addition to your farm with Farm Credit, you've been a farmer for 30 or 3+ decades, raised beef cattle and, interesting enough, cut flowers. So we'll ask you this. Which is the toughest flower you've commercially grown, and which one did you enjoy the most?
Well, you just gave me a layup because I only grew one flower commercially. and actually, that's not true because I grew anemones. You're going to have to look it up. Not sea anemones.
For
I
sure.
grew anemones as cut flowers, and they're high value flower. Other than Valentine's Day week, they're more expensive than roses. We hybridized our own varieties, so I was out there with a little paintbrush on the flowers, making seed and all that. And I did actually grow other things outside, but I could never do anemones and then something outside. So I tried other things and failed miserably at every other flower. I'm a one-trick pony. That's it.
Yeah. So is your market a florist?
We sold to
or wholesalers? Okay.
Yeah. So we were selling, large quantities. By the box, and actually, some of the innovations there, and I got to brag about this in anemones, they're not sold by the dozen. We call them metric dozens, which would mean there's 10 to a bunch, which means me as a grower gets a 20% gain on every bunch I sell because I'm putting 20% fewer flowers in the bunch. So
does that math economist, does that work?
As long as you're making a profit.
We're talking about marketing here, not math.
Yeah. Profit and revenue.
Metric dozens. If you're growing carrots, you may want to think about metric dozens.
I love that, man. I hope my donut shop doesn't do that.
There's a downside.
We've got rural entrepreneurs and metric dozens, I think, came out of this show today. And we're going to have to steal that
We're
from
running
you.
with that. We're running with that.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thanks so much for joining the show today. We're so glad you took the time to share a bit of for our listeners. And safe travels back home. I think you've got a speaking engagement here at lunch, so
I do.
We don't want to keep you any longer. And Yeah, there's more important things you've got going on, I'm sure, than the podcast.
No, I got to have fun too. Come on.
That's what we're here
Great
for.
spending time with both of you.
Thank
Awesome. All right, well, that wraps up the news for this week. Thanks for following along with the Arkansas AgCast. We're grateful to you for taking the time to watch and listen.
Remember, you can catch new episodes of the show every Thursday afternoon. Find video episodes on Facebook and YouTube, and listen to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to subscribe and leave us a review when you have a few extra minutes. The Arkansas AgCast is brought to you by Arkansas Farm Bureau. I'm Jason Brown.
And I'm John McMahon.
And we'll see you next week.